Welcome to Mystical Messages. I am Hilary Harley, your podcast host. I am a soul guide and astrologer. Mystical Messages is your podcast gateway to discover and learn more about the realm beyond the veil, including all things intuitive, metaphysical, and the healing arts. To learn more about my work or to book a session with me, please visit hilaryharley.com. Today, I am so delighted to have fellow astrologer Jill Jardine join me to understand more about the difficult year of 2022 and what is going on through the end of this year from August through, we'll say, New Year's Eve. So welcome, Jill. Thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you, Hilary. So happy to be here. And as we would say to our listeners, you ain't seen nothing yet as far as 2022 and the astrology fireworks.
Oh, man, you are so right.
As we record this at the end of July and early August, which we'll know by the time this goes live in the second half of August, went down in early August, the historic astrological alignment that has us astrologers going a little cuckoo, trying to suss it out.
Yeah, and before I get too far into our conversation, because we're gonna fasten our seatbelts and take a ride in a minute in our conversation, I just want to let everybody know how to contact you. It's Jill Jardine astrology.com. So JILLJARDINE astrology.com. That's correct?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So what Jill is referring to is as we are speaking, that we're about to have tight conjunction with Mars, which is, I call it the kick in the pants that gets you out of bed in the morning, motivating Mars, Uranus, the change agent, and the north node of the moon, all in the sign of Taurus. So tell us your take on that, Jill.
Yes, I actually released a podcast on it through my podcast, Cosmic Scene with Jill Jardine, in early July. So your listeners could go and check that out.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I wanted to let listeners know that I am a professional Western astrologer using the tropical zodiac of 30 years, but I've also been practicing as a Vedic astrologer, which is sidereal zodiac, for the last 10 years.
Right.
So I'm saying that because in the Vedic astrology, they're very, very nervous about this conjunction. They do not use outer planets like Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto.
Right.
However, Mars is considered a 5-star malefic in their system, as is the North Node, who has a name of his own called Rahu. And Rahu is the head of the demon. So we've got these two 5-star malefics together cavorting, and it's in Aries in their system. So that means that there's going to be some violent energy or very disruptive. Now, if we look at this, and so in the Vedic, there's one level of interpretation because it's happening in the sign of Aries. So it's going to be perhaps related to military or warlike or very disruptive martial energy. And Rahu in the Vedic system has to do with power and things that's sort of like Pluto in the West, abuses of power or those in power taking advantage of the populace. And it also has to do with material, greed, all of those Rahuvic things, as we say.
Right.
So it's considered going to be very challenging in Vedic as well as in Western, because we throw in the planet Uranus, outer planet Uranus, which rules change and chaos, coming together with martial Mars, passion and force, and then the North Node, which in our system of the Western astrology, the North Node is not as malefic. It's more of a point pointing toward the future. It's sort of like the heralding of what's coming next.
Right.
And it's all in Taurus in the West, which means that there's something that's going to be implicated financially when all is said and done.
Right. We're waking up to our values.
Right.
as I have been telling my clients. So when this podcast airs, our conversation airs, we're going to be in the aftermath, in the wake of the chaos being stirred up this coming weekend.
Right.
So, and also the full moon, which is making a very tight T square, a challenge. I call it three boxers in a ring, heavyweight boxers, and they're all digging their heels in. So big resistance, a lot of pushback. I'm defending my ground. I'm not budging. So as you're listening to this, ask where you can give a little and where you really want to stick to your guns and hold firm to your ideals. And do you have any insight into that full moon? Or how about the Uranus going retrograde on Wednesday, August 24th, right before the new moon at the end of the month in
Right. Well, I
August?
see all of that being an Aquarian because it is going to be the Aquarius full moon, and Uranus is the Aquarian ruled planet. So what's going to be interesting is that there will be fallout in the beginning of August, probably the first 10 days. And I also see that Mars is moving away pretty fast from that conjunction in early August. So Mars is sort of out of the picture, let's say by the 3rd or 4th. When Mercury is actually going to go into Virgo. But so let's say by the 4th that, Mars, whatever the intensity is, Mars kind of mellows out, or doesn't really mellow out, but moves on, keep moving,
Right.
right?
Right.
And then we're going to have Uranus and the North Node basically holding hands really tightly at that 18 degrees Taurus until about the full moon, which is very interesting.
Right.
So I feel like the full moon in Aquarius, Leo, creating the fixed T square with the Taurian North Node and Uranus is going to bring it all, whatever has transpired. There's going to be, like you said, a couple different ideas on resolution.
Right.
People and players are going to have their different resolving, the way they want to resolve this conflict or whatever shows up. You're going to have a lot of different inputs. And then because it is an Aquarian full moon, it has to do with the masses and the population, the people versus the Leo, Sun in Leo, Moon in Aquarius, the leaders. So we're going to see there's definitely going to be a control agenda at play here.
Yeah.
And not going to go over too well with the populace. And the other thing I just want to precurse that full moon with, I'm very into the Lionsgate 8-8, which is, I've done podcasts on that. Listen to my August update. I talk about it in detail.
Yep.
But it's basically a consciousness shifting alignment between the star system Sirius with our planet through our central sun. So Cliff Notes version is it's a huge wake up. It's a huge wake up alignment for those who are on a path of higher consciousness and seeking liberation, let's say, from the third dimensional matrix or whatever. It's really a trigger for people to awaken in their lives, whatever that means for them. Maybe break free from old patterning or break free from relationship situations that don't work. So those 3 days of the 8th, between the 8th and the 11th, are going to be very, very wild. To say the least. It will be very interesting to see. And then I think the integration does come when Uranus goes retrograde in Taurus from August 24th through January 22nd, 2023. So that's the integration, but it's also people brewing and stewing for what's our plan in 2023 type of thing.
Yeah. But 2023 gets off to a really slow start because Mercury, the messenger ruling communication, and Mars, which is our energy and our activity, both are retrograde as January 2023 kicks off. So that's very helpful to point out what's coming up. So anything else you want to add to that, or do you want to go into September a bit?
Yeah, I think that so there's shakeup in August here, which I think is different than what we've seen thus far in 2022, because it's being heralded as a historical time and changing the course of history.
Yeah.
So it's a big deal. And it's different than COVID because I feel like this is an event that happens. And then we deal with the fallout where COVID kind of went on, going, ongoing, ongoing.
Right. Right.
I mean, it's almost like maybe it's more like what 911 was. But we'll see. I don't get a connection to 9/11 at all with this. So
Yeah.
it's something very different. And you and I were talking off mic that we think there may be something because Taurus rules the earth, that it could be an earth event, such as an earthquake or a natural disaster type of thing, which would then affect the other Taurian manifestation, which is the financial markets, which we'll talk about that in September and October.
Yeah. So moving into this, so just to get everybody up to speed, Taurus rules values. It is the show me the money sign. It is skills and talents, your worth, your self-esteem, how you earn. And that's what Uranus has been cycling through and stirring the pot up with the financial markets for sure. So now we go into September, and right after Labor Day, Mercury, messenger Mercury, which rules communication, turns retrograde on Saturday, September 10th for the rest of the month until October 1st. So we'll have 6 planets in September that are retrograde, all of the outer planets, and also Jupiter and Saturn, the Titans. So that's a lot of sort of reverse gear, feels like sludge we're moving through. It's a slow start to back to school for sure. So do you want to add your insights to what you think is going to be going on in September?
Well, I mean, in a way, we might like that break of everything kind of slowing down after these fireworks that are going to happen in early August. It's like time to integrate. And that's a beautiful benefit of a Mercury retrograde cycle, that you get to integrate and reevaluate and replan. And as you've said in my podcast, all the RE words.
Yeah.
So interesting, though, this Mercury retrograde will be in the sign Libra. So Libra's out there, you're going to be affected. And by then too, Mars will be in Gemini. So, and then, we're going to have the Saturn retrograde in Aquarius. So we've got a lot of air retrograde. We've got Saturn, Mercury, and Mars all in air signs, and they're all going retrograde. Well, not Mars yet, but so this is going to be like a lot of ideas flying around. People are going to try to figure out what to do next. And that it also will affect relationships. I think that as the heat goes up on the planet, literally as well as figuratively, and we have these what feel like crisis moments over the years, it does take its toll on personal and professional relationships. And people really reevaluate, and they're like, I'm not going to go through the end of times with this person. I'm just a bit extreme there, but it's like, who do you want to be with when times are challenging, and when there may be some losses incurred? Who do you want to be with? You want to be with somebody who will be solid for you and has a level of maturity in handling situations in your personal life. So that's going to be that big test of this Mercury retrograde cycle in September. But then there's going to be a lot of going back and forth. Libra has to do with like weighing the balances, the scales. So in collective life, there's going to be decisions that probably will be people are going to be going back and forth. Which action should we take in October? Mm-hmm. And the last thing I want to say about that Mercury retrograde cycle too in September is that it happens during Rosh Hashanah, the new moon in Virgo, which is at the end of the month of September, the 25th. And in the Hebrew calendar, it's a time called Shemitah, Shmita, which they've been talking about the Hebrew year as it's ending then, but at the end, it's going to go out with a big effect on the financial markets. Apparently, in past Shemitah years, the markets have really taken a downward cycle. And we talked about this with the eclipse coming up in October being a marker for the market.
Yeah, for sure. And Taurus, where Mars and Uranus are right now, rules the stock market. That's it's no accident when we get a bull market because Taurus the bull. So yeah, that's what I do think. I do agree that September is going to be a reset month, where it will be a welcome relief after all the storm and drang that gets stirred up in August, which leads us into October. Sunday, October 2nd, we do have Mercury going direct, and it's like dominoes this month. This happened last October as well, where we had all of the planets that were retrograde in the prior months are going direct in the month of October. So first we have Messenger Mercury going direct on Sunday, October 2nd. And just as a reminder, if you can hold off on contracts or major purchases, you want to do that until the beginning of October, and then it's go time. And then Pluto, the transformer, turns direct on Sunday of Columbus Day weekend, right on the heels of a full moon, Sunday, October 9th. So it's like dominoes turning. And later in the month, Saturn turns direct on October 23rd. And the eclipse Jill is referring to is the new moon solar eclipse on Thursday, October 25th. So this is the second round of eclipses that is occurring in 2022. And we're on the Taurus Scorpio 180 degree axis with the eclipses this year. And these are the financial and power struggle signs. Right. So can you speak to what you're reading in terms of this eclipse cycle? The first one is October 25th. The second one will be on election day, November 8th. That should be fun with Mars.
Right.
Mars retrograde.
They're going to occur, like you said. We've got the Pluto going direct on the 9th, the day of the full moon. That's a full moon in Libra and Aries. So there could be some volatility around that because Pluto can be a volatile planet, and Aries is the sign ruled by Mars. And so then we move forward into October to that solar eclipse. Now, I mean, all along, I did a lot of work for the cryptocurrency people back in 2021. And I had predicted back in the summer of 2021 and early fall that we were going to see some really adverse effects to the cryptocurrency markets I call it the day, it was like November 19th was the full moon lunar eclipse in 2021. But I had said that, the highest the market would go would be on the 28th of October. And that was true. So
wow. Good for you.
And I did it again, in May before the other Scorpio Taurus eclipses. And I had said the end of March, the 29th of March, which happened to be the highest it's been for a long time. Mm-hmm. So again, I do feel the markets will rally in September, despite the Mercury retrograde, the crypto markets and the stock markets. But then the Shemitah hits at the end of September, the 25th. So there's going to be something going on between the 25th of September and 25th of October, where the market's going to try to rally back. It's going to, the financial, it's going to be like Mr. Toad's Wild Rides, up and down, and really, really jaggedy, very jaggedy with the financial markets. But I think that, the 25th, that solar eclipse is the beginning of a down cycle, recessionary down cycle, which we've already been in since last year, really, at the companion. Yes. Scorpio Taurus eclipse. It got worse in May, as everybody knows, late April and May. And now this is excuse the expression, the nail in the coffin, so to speak.
Yep.
These Scorpio Taurus eclipses. And, personally, if people are Taurians and Scorpios, you have to be on red alert. And really take care of yourself, your health, all things that concern you. I mean, we all are going to have to look after our finances and figure out what to do. You know, it's a huge reset and recalibration, and certain resources that people depended on may not be around. But I think that there will be other things showing up. But, you know, again, this is what eclipses do. They affect those archetypal energies of the signs that rule. And so in this case, it's Taurus, Scorpio, the financial markets. And we saw
Right.
it as astrologers, you know, years ago.
Yeah. And then smack dab in between those eclipses, our friend Motivating Mars turns retrograde on Halloween. Well, the day before, Sunday, October 30th.
Right. It's going to be a spooky Halloween with Mars and Gemini going retro.
Yeah, so it's going to be in the sign of Gemini, which is about communication. And I just want to add, people tend to forget that Gemini also rules siblings and short distance transportation, cars, trains, buses, as well as neighbors and community. So it's just, you really want to watch your P's and Q's, watch your words, your thoughts, during this Mars retrograde. So Mars is going to be in the sign of Gemini for 5 months because it's a 2.5-month retrograde cycle. So just watch your relationships, watch with siblings in particular and neighbors, and you definitely want to watch, think before you speak, as my father used to say. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, first of all, because it's going to be happening in Gemini, naturally people with their sun in Gemini, but people should consult their astrologers, Hilary and Jill, to find out if they have any other planets in Gemini, because this is a very long duration of retrograde. The other people who will be involved is Aries, the sign Aries, because that Mars, it's a ruler of Aries.
Right.
So, I mean, pretty much with these retrogrades, every single sign is affected either by the rulership of the planet retrograde or the sign that they're transiting in. And, you know, we could recap that at the end if we wanted to. But the good thing about the Mars retrograde, though, is that these wars and violence could calm down, and there we could see, you know, it taking a little breather. The thing about Gemini, though, Mars in Gemini is going to reveal a lot of things that were hidden news-wise, like, and maybe where the news was, there's conflicts in the news, you know, what really is the truth. Mm-hmm. So I feel like a lot of information will be revealed that, you know, people didn't realize that there's extra information behind certain things that have been going on, right?
That's very true.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of revelations, especially so this would be happening in the November and December full moons, especially the December, because that would be the moon also in Gemini.
Right.
I believe the December full moon is going to be on the 7th of December. And so the moon is going to be in Gemini while the sun's in Sag, and Mars will be going through Gemini. So that should be there should be a lot of revelations coming on at that full moon on the 7th of December. But the other thing, I mean, Mars, you can use it. I mean, I'm born with a Mars retrograde. So basically what it is, it's you look at conflict in your life and you decide how you can redirect the energy. And Mars is your vitality and life force. So I think it's going to get people a lot of clarity about how to deal with their own health and their life force, and maybe get some new information on how to handle health issues.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. And also training their brain, you know, maybe using, you know, Gemini are the twins, and we in Western cultures favor the dominant twin, which is the information sharer, the information, you know, we talk and speak, and the influencer and the social media and go, the doer, but, you know, giving more credence to that passive Gemini twin, which is the thinker, about reflection, contemplation, meditation. And it can really be a time to slow down and reset. And to your point earlier about, you know, the labor market, people really rethinking, particularly in September with Mercury retrograde, how they want to spend their time, valuing their time, the currency of their life, what they do in their waking hours. And the Mars retrograde is a continuation of that for sure. So now we're into November, and we're in the thick of it, so to speak, with that second eclipse on Tuesday, November 8th, full moon lunar eclipse. And any thoughts about election day? Or
Well, I'm just glad it's not a presidential election day.
For real.
I do think there's going to be a lot of issues, let's just put it that way, with elections across the country. There's going to be a lot of issues with this election day. And when things are eclipsed, that means that you can't see the full story. Like, again, something's hidden here. You know, the luminaries are obscured so that the sun, which generally rules leadership, and then the moon, which rules the subconscious, or what's on behind the surface. So this is a lunar eclipse. So it is there, the moon is going to be obscured. So that actually says there's going to be a lot of shadowy things afoot. There's going to be a lot of, we thought we got the shadow energy over at Halloween, right? But it's going to go into early November under lovely Scorpio. So Scorpionic, and the Scorpio sun with the Taurus moon. So it certainly will be impacting the financial markets as well.
Right. It's at a very strong degree. I noticed 15 degrees, Scorpio Taurus, and that's a ring-a-ding-ding degree, which world axis gets everybody's attention.
The degree of the big signs, gates of the avatar. Yeah, they're big shifting and changing locations in the zodiac between 14, 15 degrees of Aquarius, Scorpio, Leo, or Taurus. And there we go. The full moon's going to be happening right on that degree.
Right. So I know they've been talking about in the media the midterm elections for quite some time. It's beyond that, in my estimation, that it's who has power, who does not have power. And, it's really a very strong time, to say the least. It's like double espresso. It'll wake you up.
Shadowy too. If there's been shadow activities around election policies, the way that elections are set up, that's going to be going down as well.
Right. I mean, there is a bright note at the end of November when Jupiter turns direct. Jupiter is the Titan of abundance. I call it the Santa Claus of the zodiac. And right before Thanksgiving, it turns direct motion the day before Thanksgiving. So hopefully that'll help lift. And
that's also a new moon in Sag. So that should be a little bit of a bright star coming in at the end of the month. Good news.
Yeah.
Whatever hasn't been sorted out, let's say we have some election confusion, I think that might help sort out some of the confusion at the end of the month.
Yeah. Scorpio tends to deal with what is buried, but Sagittarius certainly shines a light of truth. And that's coming in, especially with the planet that rules Sagittarius, Jupiter. So, Jill, thank you so much for being on the show today. Again, my guest is fellow astrologer Jill Jardine, JILLJARDINE, astrology.com. She is an amazing astrologer. She practices both Western and Vedic, which I think is just mind-blowing. Vedic is always like, how does this work again? I've looked at it, and it's just an amazing system, and it's ancient for sure. So that brings us to the end of this episode of Mystical Messages. And again, if you want to contact Jill for a session, it's jilljardineastrology.com. Or to learn more about my work or book a session with me, please visit hilaryharley.com. Thank you for listening today. And please join me again in 2 weeks when I will bring you my astrology forecast for September. I wish you blessings, many blessings as you journey forward during this time.